One day, they brought me in and they fired me. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe they sat down and said, "You're not going to work here anymore. Your progress has gone down. We don't see any value in you, and here's your final paycheck, and away you go." And I, at the time, was devastated. I couldn't believe it. And I went through the 5 stages of grief immediately. I went through anger, and then realized I was a little kid. Can't get that angry. This guy kicked my butt. He's grown a toll. So anger went right past to bargaining. I said, "Well, I'll try really harder. Give me another chance." And he's looking at me as we've made our decision. And he was very calm, and he's actually very polite in hindsight about doing this. And you could tell he had been a dad because he tried to take me under his wing and explain that, hey, this is not a life sentence. You can come back from this. You can be a very successful individual if you change your ways. This is not who you are. This is not a stamp on your forehead that everyone's going to see for the rest of your life. Just learn from this and move on. So he was a really nice guy. And I didn't even do depression. I just said, okay, and I walked out. So I was still in those denial phases and bargaining. Bargaining didn't work. And I left there, and I went home, and I had to, of course, tell my parents. Now, for you guys who don't know, I come from the Leave It to Beaver family. I really do. My parents have been high school sweethearts. They're still married. We have the little white picket fence. We have the older boy, the younger daughter, 2 kids, each different sexes. We are the American family. We really, really are. And I come from a very close family. Never had the TV on. We always sat around the dinner table every night and talked about our day. I knew about the sign industry when I was 10, before I even knew I was going to be a part of it. That's just how our family ran. And so coming from the Leave It to Beaver family, and I had to tell them that I got fired. That day sucked. That was a brutal day that I had to sit down and eat a lot of crow and be very humble and tell them that I decided to slack off on my job and I was too cool to bag groceries and I got fired. What no one ever thinks about in these stories is the employer's point of view. So let's switch gears on this, and I want to tell you about a scenario that I've had for a while in my head that happened, and it's happened so many times that I feel it's just standard protocol. When you have to let somebody go as a boss or as an employer, it is no fun. It sucks. I'm going to use Bob here as an example. I hired Bob to do a project. I thought Bob was a really good candidate for this project. I hired Bob in. Bob learned what was expected of him. I gave Bob all the tools to be successful. Bob started working really well. And then about a year to a year and a half, Bob started to decline. He started to show up a little bit later. He started to do just the minimums. Work wasn't getting off his plate. And instead of being a good employer and talking to Bob and counseling him, I just said, "Oh, he must have having a bad day," and I made excuses for Bob. I, as an employer, even though I know I was getting robbed of my 8 for 8, was still making excuses for this employee of, "He'll bounce back tomorrow. Oh, he'll do it next week. He'll do it next week." And Bob then realized that his minimum was now a baseline because I, as an employer, never said anything. So he got worse and worse, and I allowed it to happen. As Bob got worse and worse and I allowed it to happen, that was his new baseline. He got paid for it last week for that level. Why isn't he getting paid this week for that level? And that's a scary place to be for an employer. You're allowing your employees to lower their expectation level. You're allowing that expectation to be lowered for you. That's the truth. That's what's really happening when you do not confront those employees and have those uncomfortable conversations. So what happens is the employer then goes, "I have to fire Bob. I have to let him go."